Today we're talking about international transactions and regulations. Okay, so let's talk about first about the geography and regulations. So Sul Payments, they are aimed to help people to make cross-border payments and also in-country payments. Is it a pain point of your clients? I mean, they don't have any other solution, and why they are choosing you?
If we look at the Latin American continent, it's pretty much fragmented with different countries. Every country has their own currency, right? And if you maybe then want to interact with the Western world, let's say Europe or Switzerland, then you face different challenges. So imagine you are an international company, you want to enter the Latin American continent, and maybe you want to sell your mainly digital products, such as games, online content, right? Then you often have to establish a local connection, meaning establish a company, have local banking regulations, and then last but not least, to be able to accept those payments, you need to have the presence there. Sul Payments, in this case, helps you. It is the gateway for Western companies going into Latin America.
So you're using for that purpose stable coins or any other solutions or any other instruments?
So not only, but also.
Yeah, what is the part? Yeah.
Exactly. So not only, but also. So we originate more as a traditional payment processor. However, the market demand drives us to adopt new technologies to be more efficient. And how come? It's mainly the driver of the inefficient traditional SWIFT system when you interact, especially with intercontinental transactions.
Yeah, that takes a lot of time to receive the payments. Janina, can you tell us whether you have the experience of working on that kind of business on consulting and how to abide by the regulations and the rules for that kind of transfers? Or
do you mean the payment transactions?
Yeah, international payment transactions in stablecoins.
Well, in general, I would say I totally agree with Tilmar. We work a lot with Web3 projects, everything related to tokens, tokenization, blockchain. And whenever you work with those projects, having a word token, having a word blockchain in the description of your project puts you by default with every bank and every payment services provided to high risk in terms of compliance, which means enhanced due diligence. Which means, and since a lot of those due diligence processes are not really optimized,
yeah, it's a manual check.
It becomes a nightmare for compliance to work with you because they have to check and do a lot of work with their hands on every transaction. And plus sometimes additional risk factor passports of the founders. If they are outside the EU, they're mostly also recognized as high risk. So you have double high risk, double trouble, as I say. And then additionally, you have transactions with the US, with dollar, which a lot of people like. And then dealing with US correspondent bank is also a nightmare. For a little transaction of 5K, they ask for insane amount of documents. And that's why those payment solutions which use USDT, where you still have, let's say, the common currency US dollar, they really have the future and they really can take a share of the market because the banking solutions and even payment institutions are so much inefficient.
Okay, can you confirm that you have this kind of trouble and what exactly you're facing it?
Absolutely. I mean, that's where the idea originally came from is we looked at the issues, obstacles and problems of the TradFi industry. And let's say maybe we can just mention 3 of them. You said it's a manual process sometimes that a transaction within the bank gets forwarded, right? Then it's the request of documents. I mean, I'm a fan. I'm coming from not only crypto, but also banking background. So compliance is our highest goal. But then sometimes if I send a transaction, even though there is an established banking relationship, I need to always provide the documents, even though our partners in LATAM, they're all regulated. So we ask our questions, why do we always need to provide those documents, right? And then, of course, there's time. Sometimes if you send funds, let's say, from Brazil to Switzerland, we sometimes need to wait more than a week until they arrive in our bank account. And from a, let's say, globalized international business background, this just takes too long.
Yeah. Can you describe a little bit the process? I mean, you are acting like a liquidity pool. I mean, you're collecting all the payments locally, and then you're converting in USDT, and then you make the international transfer, or how it works?
So the process goes as following. So we work with local gaming providers. Those gaming providers have their customers, right? So that enterprise then collects the local currency, which then sometimes needs to get transferred into another country, maybe to finance operations which are in another jurisdiction. Then we seamlessly, transparent and compliant, convert those funds into USDT, send it cross-border, and then on the other side of the jurisdiction you want to have those currency, we convert it back into the local currency. Maybe name an example. There's an operation ongoing in Mexico. So you have a local gaming or in-app purchasing gaming provider. They would then collect the funds, make sure they have international transaction license to transfer them. We would be able to support this with USDT and then reimburse the provider in the currency they require.
Okay. Janina, as a legal consultant, what do you think about this operation? What are the risks of being double-check the due diligence, or?
Well,
Yeah, because it's quite complicated.
no, if you have good established, let's say, automated compliance processes through all of the chain, which you apparently have, then I wouldn't see any additional risks. Though, if you would like then to transfer, let's say, the funds which you receive in USDT, so far most of the projects, they have to, for example, they have bank accounts for keeping their reserves, let's say starting from 500K something, and the rest they keep for regular small transactions with payment services providers like you are, or EMIs, as long as it is compliant.
Okay. Yeah, there is no any issue.
There should not be additional risk. Of course, you can have sometimes banks. Well, you normally work with banks. At the end of the day, if you would like to keep it as a reserves, you work with banks, let's say crypto-friendly banks, which work with those, with everything related to tokenization, blockchain, crypto, etc. Because normal banks, well, if you do a transfer, let's say cash out from an exchange or payment service provider using USDT and do a cash out, then they could ask you a lot of questions. And that's why you normally use, let's say, additional layers of exchanges or payment services providers before you cash out to the actual bank account to avoid those additional questions, because then the due diligence obligations are either with exchange or with payment services providers and not with a bank. And that's easier for the bank.
And what about new regulations coming in force by the end of 2024? MiCA,
Now we're talking about MiCA.
yeah, MiCA,
Okay.
and maybe some others for AML in other jurisdictions. So how it will affect your business or your work?
I think you're the professional in this, being a MiCA expert based in Liechtenstein.
Okay, yeah.
Please.
Yeah, well, we cover both. I've been covering both Switzerland and Liechtenstein since 2017. In Switzerland, a lot of people are not aware of the fact that Switzerland is geographically in EU, but it has bilateral agreements with EU. It's not actually part of the EU,
Yeah.
but it has Liechtenstein, and it's, let's say, kind of backdoor to the European economic area, to the European market. Liechtenstein is part of the extended EU, and through passporting, you can have access to the European market. So far, MiCA is, well, it is there. I believe the parts regarding asset reference tokens, e-money tokens are entering into application in some way, and then the rest regarding the CUSPs, the licenses. We are lucky enough in Liechtenstein to have Liechtenstein Blockchain Act, the VTG, since 2020, and it is being adopted right now towards MiCA. So even before MiCA will be there, most of the rules are already implemented in international legislation. It is really the advantage of, let's say, a smaller country, a proactive country, which tries to retain its USP for advanced crypto projects. But yes, regarding MiCA for other countries, let's say where there are no special national legislation or no special guidelines, I say to the project, you have to start your operations before MiCA so that you can make a use of the transition period. That's it. It's not a legal advice, but it's a general suggestion for all of the projects. Start as soon as possible. Do your research, talk to your lawyers, do your homework, and get ready in advance.
Okay.
And so that you wouldn't need to stop the operations when MiCA would be there. Yeah.
So, Tilmar, are you ready?
We are ready. No, I tell you, so we are currently live in the major Latin American countries. This includes Brazil, Mexico, Peru, Chile, Argentina, and Colombia. In all of those jurisdictions, we make sure that we work with compliant entities or even entities which have the local licenses to provide the services they provide in those jurisdictions. I think there are two concepts in the crypto world having evolved over the last 2 years, and maybe you can agree. We're based in the same geographic and regulatory environment. So there's one example, which is tech companies. They have a terrific and beautiful marketing campaign online, but they lack in regulations. So from the front end, they look, oh, wow, we should work with them. And then they have maybe more traditional backed entities, such as one of the first or the first digital assets banks. They follow a different strategy. They follow the strategies like, look, before we run into operations, we get the regulations everywhere, and then later the clients come. What do we see now over the last years of the blockchain in digital asset industry is that actually the latter succeed. So everyone in the beginning criticizing, oh, regulation is coming, but then, no, but actually looking into the future long term, that is what turns out to be the more successful strategy. And this is something what we do at Sul Payments. So our partners in the jurisdiction we work with, they all have the necessary license for local payment processing and also transferring funds abroad. Plus, we in Switzerland do also adhere to local regulations and everything what comes with it, meaning transaction monitoring. In Switzerland, according to the VQF SRO standard, you have specific rules how to onboard the client. And we make sure that before we run into operations that we have our compliance on the level like the regulator wants it, and then we want to enter into business.
Another thing here, was it hard to implement it? I mean, was it a burden or is it normal operation process? So how hard was it from a business point of view?
So we share some sort of legal background, and I think any startup starting anywhere, do not underestimate not only the costs of legal consultancy, but also the process and implementing, let's say, the AML policy you're developing. Make sure that you adhere to the standards. Talk to your auditor after maybe you onboarded the first client. Did I do everything correctly? Do we face issues? I'm not sure. Maybe you have some industry insights.
Sure, I totally agree with you that, I mean, writing or having your policy done by good consultants, no matter whether lawyers or specialized compliance consultants, there are a bunch of outsourced compliance consultants, both in Switzerland and Liechtenstein and other EU countries. You should work with them together on developing the policies so that they reflect the processes that you envision, what kind of technical tools you're going to use for onboarding, normally like something like SumSub or Intrum or Fractal or others on the market. They're all great. They have let's say, pricing issues, but depending on the level of the startup, the transactions planned, you choose one of them. And then, of course, the startups for the technical solutions for the travel rule, like, I don't know, Crystal blockchain with Marina today. A chain analysis normally is used in the jurisdictions where we operate, 21 analytics, etc. It takes some time to put it all together. Of course, these are costs. These are costs also for compliance officers. You normally have someone either outsourced in the beginning and then someone at least part-time in-house You should really master it in terms of project management.
We have to deal with it anyway. So we have no choice. My last question, I think, that we ask for every guest coming here: are you for or against a uniform KYC? I mean, for everything is happening, know your client's application.
Well, I guess it would be quite impossible because most of the countries they have different regulations and different approaches and different standards, like what is the level of the transaction, I don't know, starting from 1K or even from 0. We have seen those differences on national levels, and in most cases it is justified. I guess we are anyway moving towards the sovereign identity, where we all are going to have our KYC data encrypted somehow, and it will be more or less according to one standard. But it's a way to go.
Yeah, it's a way to go, sure. What do you think about this, Tilmar? Whether the uniformal or KYC for all transactions, all what's happening in the blockchain industry is a good thing to do, or you have something against it?
So me thinking from a perspective of a CEO of a tech company in the emerging technologies, I think we need to look a little bit more on how countries or which countries will implement Web3 technology. Is it the dinosaur-like, over-regulated Western world, or is it the more agile, dynamic, emerging economies which are eager to compete with the world economy, right? I believe it's the latter. So then let's look at the KYC requirements. Uniforming and having harmonized KYC standard, I think it's at the moment a little bit difficult, right? Maybe we work with Albus Protocol towards this sort of KYC standard, but I think in the end, we need to make sure that we are compliant in the jurisdiction and then maneuver through the difficult crossroads between those jurisdictions.
Thank you for your answer for this question, and thank you for coming today with us. And
thank you for the invitation.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot for inviting us.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was Albus Talks today, and thank you for watching us.